But when the sun sets, the coastline changes. Old shipwrecks groan beneath the tide. And whispers ride the wind, carried from long ago. Where spirits linger. And where the most haunted beaches of South Carolina hold memories that will chill even the bravest hearts. Take a deep breath. The tide is turning. The shadows are waking. Greetings, dear listener. It is wonderful to have you join me tonight. We are about to explore 20 beaches in South Carolina that are far more than just scenic views. Places where the past refuses to rest. Where shipwrecks whisper tales of lost sailors. Where the cries of the drowned echo over the waves. And where ghostly figures wander along the sand long after the sun has disappeared. These beaches are not just abandoned by people. They are watched by the unseen. The lost. The restless. As we journey from one haunted beach to another, imagine yourself walking alone at night. The waves crash softly against your feet. The wind carries a chill that is more than the ocean breeze. You hear faint footsteps behind you. Or perhaps a voice calling your name. You turn. No one is there. And yet you are not alone. Now, before we walk into these haunted sands, I want to ask you something. If you heard a mysterious voice calling from a dark beach at midnight, would you investigate the source? Or would you turn away and run for safety? I am curious to know what you would do. The ruins of the old Folly Beach lighthouse rise from the shoreline like a sentinel frozen in time. Its walls are weathered by salt and wind, the tower leaning slightly, yet still imposing against the horizon. But by day, it appears abandoned and inert, a relic of a past that the sea slowly reclaims. But by night, the lighthouse tells a different story, one that has captured the imagination of locals and travelers for decades. The legend begins with a lighthouse keeper who vanished without a trace. He was responsible for maintaining the beacon that guided ships safely along the coast. A solitary figure whose life was entwined with the rhythm of the tides and the ceaseless roar of the ocean. One evening, he disappeared, leaving the lighthouse unattended. And despite searches and investigations, he was never found. Locals say that on certain nights, a lantern light appears atop the ruins of the lighthouse. The glow is soft yet persistent, visible from the shore even when the wind is high and the waves crash violently against the rocks below. Observers describe the light as moving in slow, deliberate sweeps, scanning the horizon as if checking for passing ships, maintaining vigilance that has endured long after the keeper himself vanished. Those who approach the lighthouse after dark report seeing a shadowy figure near the top of the tower. The silhouette stands motionless at first, watching the sea with an unwavering gaze. Even from a distance, the figure seems human, yet there is an otherworldly quality to its presence. The air feels heavier near the ruins, carrying the scent of salt, seaweed, and something indefinably old, like the memory of countless storms. The ruins themselves are haunting in their detail. Cracked masonry and eroded steps trace the path the keeper once walked. Rusted railings lean precariously over the cliff edge, and broken windows gape like silent eyes toward the dark water. The lighthouse seems almost alive, its stone walls echoing the faint sound of footsteps and the distant hum of the sea, amplifying the presence of the unseen watcher above. Witnesses describe a mix of fear and fascination when observing the figure. The lanterna's light glints against the dark ocean, casting long reflections that ripple across the water. Shadows shift against the tower's weathered walls, creating the impression of movement even when the figure stands still. Some say they feel the sensation of being observed, a quiet awareness that something or something is watching as intently as they are watching the horizon. The soundscape around the lighthouse adds to the atmosphere. The wind carries the cry of distant gulls and the crash of waves onto jagged rocks. Occasionally, the rhythmic clanging of loose metal echoes from the tower, as if the lighthouse itself remembers the work once performed within. The combination of sound and light creates a cinematic scene, one that blurs the boundary between history and haunting. Those who linger nearby report subtle changes in the environment. The temperature drops slightly, even on warm nights, and a stillness settles over the sand and rocks that feels deliberate. Small, unexplained flashes of movement can appear near the ruined steps, and the smell of lantern smoke sometimes drifts faintly on the air. All of these details reinforce the sense that the lighthouse is more than a structurea, it is a vessel for memory, presence, and unresolved duty. The legend of the phantom lighthouse keeper has grown over the years. Sailors passing the shore have reported seeing the light while traveling at sea, even though the tower has long been decommissioned. Visitors on the beach speak of the same glow, the same figure standing silently at the top. Each encounter adds layers to the story, yet the mystery remains intact. No living person is present, yet the actions of the keeper continue as though guided by the discipline of his former life. Observers often describe the figurea's movements as deliberate. The lantern is raised, lowered, and swung in wide arcs across the horizon, mimicking the routine of a watch that never ends. At times, the figure appears to pause, as if listening, before continuing the sweeping motion. It is a performance rooted in memory and habit. A silent ritual maintained across decades of emptiness. The lighthouse has become a focal point for those drawn to the unexplained. Photographers, curious travelers, and local storytellers visit the site to witness the phenomenon, each leaving with accounts that range from awe to quiet unease. Some attempt to capture the lantern on camera, but it often appears distorted or muted, failing to convey the intensity and presence observed in person. This only adds to the mystery, suggesting that the light and the figure exist on a plane that defies conventional understanding. The surrounding beach plays its part in the haunting. Moonlight reflects across the sand and water, illuminating the ruins in silver hues. Shadows stretch long and change with the movement of the tide. The rhythm of waves provides a constant soundtrack, blending seamlessly with the imagined sounds of the lighthouse keeper tending his duties long after the world has moved on. Despite the decades that have passed, the phantom keeper endures. The lantern light continues to sweep the horizon, and the shadow remains at the tower's peak. There is no malice in the presence, only vigilance, an echo of devotion and responsibility, preserved by the structure and the memory of the man who once walked its heights. By dawn, the phenomenon fades. The lantern light disappears, shadows retreat, and the beach returns to the quiet solitude of morning. Visitors leave, carrying the memory of the figure and the soft, unwavering glow. The lighthouse once again appears empty, yet those who witnessed the scene know it holds a secret life that awakens only when night falls. Folly Beach's phantom lighthouse keeper is more than a story of disappearance. It is a reminder of duty, persistence, and the enduring presence of history in physical spaces. The ruins, the glow, and the silent watcher connect the past to the present, offering a glimpse into a moment that refuses to fade. For anyone standing on the sand beneath the tower, the experience is cinematic, haunting, and unforgettable. A quiet testament to the watch that continues long after the keeper himself vanished. The ruins, the glow, and the silent watcher connect the past to the present, offering a glimpse into a moment that refuses to fade. For anyone standing on the sand beneath the tower, the experience is cinematic, haunting, and unforgettable, a quiet testament to the watch that continues long after the keeper himself vanished. The beaches of Myrtle Beach are lively by day, filled with sun, sand, and the laughter of visitors. But as night falls and the crowds retreat, a different atmosphere emerges. The moonlight casts long silver reflections across the waves, And the rhythmic crash of surf becomes a steady, hypnotic pulse. Along the shore near the pier, the wind carries whispers that seem out of place among the ordinary sounds of the ocean. Locals and visitors alike have spoken of a sorrowful presence, a spirit whose grief has persisted for decades. Those who wander the sands after dark sometimes hear it first as a low murmur, like a voice caught in the wind. Gradually, the sound becomes distinct, sobbing, muffled and deep, accompanied by faint muttered prayers. It is the cry of a sailor who perished long ago, lost to the unforgiving currents, unable to return to shore. The legend says that he remains tethered to the beach, walking silently along the water's edge, forever mourning the loss of his crewmates. Witnesses describe the experience as both chilling and strangely sad. The sound is not constant, appearing in fleeting moments as if the sailor is passing by unseen. Some say the wind carries his voice toward them, compelling them to stop and listen. The cries are accompanied by the faintest rustle of movement along the sand, the impression of footsteps left by someone who is never physically seen. Those who pause often swear they hear names called softly, names of men who vanished at sea long ago, carried across the water with echoes of longing and regret. The pier itself, a place of bustling activity in daylight, transforms under the moon. Wooden beams creak gently in the breeze, shadows stretch across the sand, and the water glimmers in darkened shades of blue and silver. Here, the sailor's presence feels strongest. People report that the sounds often emerge near the base of the pier, where waves lap quietly against pilings. It is a liminal space, where land and sea meet, and where the boundary between the living and the spirit world seems thinnest. Histories of the town tell of storms and shipwrecks that claimed the lives of countless sailors. One incident, in particular, is tied to the crying sailor. A vessel went down in treacherous waters, and the sailor drowned while attempting to save his crew. Though the others were lost to the waves, he is said to remain on the sands, endlessly retracing his last steps, calling for those who never returned. The legend grew over the years as more people reported hearing the mysterious sobs, each adding detail to a story that has persisted through generations. Visitors who encounter the phenomenon describe a mixture of emotions. Fear is tempered by sympathy, an understanding that this is not a malicious presence, but a spirit consumed by grief and duty. The cries themselves are hauntingly human, evoking the fragility and sorrow of life at sea. Some say they feel a chill in the air, not from temperature alone, but from the weight of history pressing down in the quiet of the night. Others notice a strange heaviness in their hearts, an emotional resonance that lingers long after the sounds fade. The timing of the appearances often coincides with the changing tides. Low tide exposes stretches of sand where the sailor's spirit is said to walk, his footprints vanishing as if the earth cannot hold them. The ebb and flow of the ocean mirrors the rhythm of the cries, rising and falling like a wave of remembrance. Hikers, fishermen, and nighttime beachgoers have all recounted moments where the sobbing seems synchronized with the motion of the water, as if the spirit is moving with the sea itself. The phenomenon is not limited to sound alone. Some witnesses report faint glimpses of movement. Shadows along the shoreline that appear human but vanish when approached. Others describe the sensation of being watched or of a presence passing close. A fleeting awareness that accompanies the auditory experience. These details, subtle yet persistent, add to the credibility of the legend. The sense that something extraordinary persists at Myrtle Beach after dark. Despite the eerie nature of the encounter, many who hear the cries feel a profound connection to the past. The sailor's grief is a reminder of the dangers and sacrifices of life at sea, and of the human need to remember those who were lost. It is a story of loyalty and endurance, a spirit unwilling to abandon the memory of his crewmates, even after death. In this way, the crying sailor becomes more than a ghost story, he is a symbol of devotion and remembrance, etched into the sands of the shoreline and carried by the wind across the waves. The legend has become part of the identity of Myrtle Beach after dark. Locals speak of it in hushed tones, warning newcomers to listen carefully if they venture near the pier at night. Researchers and paranormal enthusiasts are drawn to the site, hoping to capture evidence of the cries or the fleeting presence of the sailor. Cameras and recording devices often capture nothing, yet those present insist the experience is real, a phenomenon that exists beyond simple measurement, anchored in emotion and history rather than physical proof. A phenomenon that exists beyond simple measurement, anchored in emotion and history rather than physical proof. Even when the pier is empty and the waves lap gently against the shore. His cries are unpredictable, sometimes appearing for only a few moments, sometimes lingering across the sands for what feels like hours. Those who witness the event often carry the memory with them, replaying the sound in their minds and feeling a connection to a story older than themselves. The crying sailor continues to walk the beach, invisible and enduring, a sentinel of memory and loss. Myrtle Beach after dark is transformed by this presence. The moonlight glimmers on wet sand. The waves shimmer with silver reflections. And the wind carries whispers of the past. For those who listen closely, the shore becomes a place where stories of courage, loss, and loyalty echo through time, carried by a spirit who will never forget the names of those who were lost. Sullivan's Island stretches along the Atlantic coast, its sands wide and soft, kissed by waves that carry the salty tang of the sea. By day, it is a place of sun and laughter, of families walking along the shoreline and gulls diving into the surf. But as the sun dips below the horizon, the island transforms. Shadows lengthen across the sand, the wind carries a cooler bite, and the rhythm of the waves takes on a slower, more deliberate pace. It is in these quiet hours after sunset that people report something unusual. Wet footprints appear in the sand, fresh and distinct, as if someone had just passed by. The impressions follow the curve of the beach, leading toward the rolling surf. Those who see them first assume a person must be nearby, perhaps walking along the shoreline. Yet when they look, the beach is empty. The wind sculpts the dunes, the gulls retreat to roost, and no living soul seems to have left the tracks behind. The footprints are perfectly formed, as though someone had taken careful steps along the sand. Some reports describe them as small and delicate, others as the size of a grown man's foot. What is consistent is their path. They lead steadily toward the water, stopping only at the edge where waves meet the shore. There, in the soft surf, they vanish abruptly, as though the person had stepped into the sea and disappeared without a trace. Those who encounter the footprints describe a mixture of wonder and unease. The experience feels tangible yet impossible, a moment where reality shifts just enough to make the ordinary seem extraordinary. Some have followed the prints along the beach, hoping to discover the source, only to find the sand untouched ahead. The tracks do not continue in another direction. They do not fade into the dunes. They end where the waves break, leaving nothing behind but the memory of something unseen. Locals say that the phenomenon has been occurring for generations. The island has a long history, from colonial settlements to military fortifications. Each layer of human presence leaving traces in the land and the memory of those who walked its sands. Some believe the footprints are the remnants of someone lost to the sea, a spirit that returns to retrace steps never completed in life. Others think it is the echo of countless lives that have intersected with the water, the sand preserving faint impressions of their passage. The beach itself plays a role in the mystery. The surf shifts with the rhythm of the moon, ebbing and flowing, creating patterns that seem almost deliberate. Shadows stretch over the beach, and the dim light of sunset casts everything in gold and silver, making the footprints appear to glow with an ethereal light. Witnesses say it feels as if the world pauses when the prints are seen, holding its breath in quiet anticipation. Some have reported following the footprints only to hear the distant sound of footsteps echoing alongside them. Soft but unaccompanied by any figure. The effect is disorienting, a gentle reminder that the beach is not simply sand and water, but a place where memory and presence linger. where the past and present touch in fleeting, mysterious ways. Visitors who encounter the ghostly footprints often speak of the feeling left behind rather than the prints themselves. A chill in the air, a sense of someone watching from just beyond perception, or a subtle tug at the imagination. Some have paused at the water's edge, watching the waves roll in over the vanished tracks, and felt the presence of someone standing beside them, invisible yet undeniably there. The footprints are more than marks in the sand, they are a connection, a moment when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The phenomenon is unpredictable. Some nights, the beach is entirely empty, untouched by ghostly steps. Other nights, the footprints appear in abundance, leading in a single line, diverging into pairs, or appearing in scattered patterns that make no sense. Those who see them say that the experience leaves a lasting impression, a memory that persists long after the sand has been smoothed by wind and tide. Sullivan's Island, with its history and natural beauty, continues to hold the imagination of those who walk its shores. The ghostly footprints are a quiet mystery, a story that unfolds with each tide. A story that unfolds with each tide, a reminder that some presences are subtle yet persistent, leaving traces that challenge understanding and invite curiosity. Where the living can witness a faint echo of the past. Where the ordinary act of walking along the sand transforms into a brush with the unknown. As night falls fully over the island, the footprints vanish entirely. The wet sand smoothing over the impressions. The ocean continues its endless rhythm. And the wind carries the faint memory of steps that were never meant to remain. Yet for those who saw them the experience is undeniable. A girl walking alone, a pair of feet heading into the waves. The sand pressed under someone who is no longer there. The ghostly footprints of Sullivan's Island endure as a quiet, haunting reminder of the mysteries that linger where land meets sea, and of the stories the tide carries in its ceaseless motion. The Isle of Palms is a place where the sea meets the sky in endless shades of blue and gray. Where tides shape the sands and winds carry stories from long ago. For centuries, locals have whispered about a presence along the shoreline. A figure that appears when the fog rolls in thick and heavy, obscuring the world and leaving only shapes and shadows. She is known simply as the Bride, a woman trapped between life and legend, wandering the coast in search of something lost to time. Centuries ago, she was a young woman on the eve of her wedding. Friends and family gathered to celebrate, and hope seemed endless. But fate intervened in a cruel and tragic way. On that day, she drowned along the shoreline, swept away by currents too strong for a single person to resist. Her wedding dress, once pristine, became sodden with water and sand. Her dreams ended abruptly, leaving a gap that no celebration, no passage of years, could fill. Now, on nights when fog settles over the island, some claim to see her. The dress is tattered and worn, the fabric flowing around her as if moved by an invisible current. She moves slowly, almost gliding across the sand, her steps careful and deliberate. Observers say she appears fragile, yet her presence is undeniable. She is searching, always searching, for a groom who never came, a life that was stolen before it could begin. The fog is an essential part of her story. It rises off the water and drifts across the shoreline, thickening the air and muting sound. In this world of gray, she becomes visible as a glowing shape, an ethereal reminder of loss and longing. Locals describe a silence that accompanies her appearance, a quiet that is heavier than the usual stillness of the island at night. Even the waves seem to slow, holding their rhythm as though paying attention to her passage. Visitors who have encountered her describe the experience as unsettling yet strangely beautiful. The sight of her wandering the sands evokes empathy, a connection to the grief and hope that persist beyond life. She does not speak. She does not call for help. She simply searches, eyes scanning the horizon, hands brushing against the fog as if to feel the presence of a world that no longer belongs to her. Those who watch feel as though they are witnessing history repeated, a moment frozen and endlessly replayed. The legend has been passed down in countless variations, each one emphasizing the bride's sorrow and the tragedy of her untimely death. Some say she appears only during the anniversary of her wedding day. Others insist that she can be seen whenever the fog is thick enough to hide the world from view. Some accounts mention fleeting glimpses of her in the morning mist. Others in the late hours of the night. Regardless of when she appears, the effect is always the same: a presence that captivates, unsettles, and lingers long after she has vanished. The Isle of Palms itself seems to respond to her legend. Winds sweep over dunes and grasses with a certain rhythm, almost as if carrying her footsteps. Waves crash against the shore, breaking into white foam that glimmers in the fog. Driftwood and seaweed shift with the tides, creating shapes that might be mistaken for movement, yet the bride is unmistakable to those who know the story. Some have tried to explain her appearance through natural phenomena. Fog can create illusions, shadows can take shape in ways that trick the eye. And wind can carry shapes that seem human. Yet those who have encountered her insist that no ordinary explanation can account for the sense of awareness. The deliberate movements, the feeling that she is searching for something that has never returned. She is more than an image in the mist. She is a presence, imbued with longing and memory, persistent and patient. A reminder that some stories endure because they are tied to powerful emotions. Caution, and awe, understanding that what they witness is not merely a trick of nature but a living echo of the past. And the persistence of memory beyond death. Yet her impact remains, a mark on the imagination of all who see her. On nights when the fog is heaviest, when the air is cool and the tide reaches the dunes, the bride appears once more. Her dress flows in the damp wind, torn and tattered yet hauntingly beautiful. She walks slowly along the shoreline, eyes fixed on a horizon that will never reveal her lost love. She pauses, sometimes, as if listening for a sound that never comes. Then she continues, drifting along the sands, a ghostly figure tied to a moment of tragedy that history cannot erase. The Isle of Palms remains a place of quiet beauty, where the past and present intermingle along the foggy coast. And among the dunes and surf, the bride wanders endlessly, searching, waiting, and carrying with her the story of a life interrupted. In her silent pursuit, she reminds all who witness her that some tragedies leave traces that cannot be forgotten. That some spirits move beyond the veil of time, and that the fog itself can be a canvas for memory, sorrow, and the enduring hope of a love that was never fulfilled. Hunting Island has long been a place where the sea meets treacherous shores. Sand stretches wide under the sun. But the waters that surround it have claimed countless vessels over the years. Storms, hidden sandbars, and sudden currents have turned routine journeys into tragedies, leaving behind stories of lost crews and shattered ships. Even today, the island carries the weight of those past events, etched into its beaches and whispered by the wind. As night falls, the atmosphere along the shore changes. The waves, usually calm, take on an almost reflective quality under the moonlight, and the air grows thick with anticipation. Faint lanterns flicker just above the surf, moving slowly, as if guiding someone or something through the darkness. The figures that accompany these lights are equally mysterious. Shadows appear to move in the waves, their forms human yet elusive. They seem to navigate the water with purpose, reaching toward the shore and then disappearing just as quickly. The experience is disorienting, a blend of motion and stillness, light and shadow, creating the impression that the past is overlapping with the present. Sounds accompany the sight, intensifying the effect. Splintering wood breaks the quiet night, echoing across the sand as though ships are being torn apart in real time. The history of Hunting Island adds context to these reports. From the colonial era to modern times, sailors have feared the islanda's shores. Logs recount vessels that ran aground during sudden storms, crews forced to fight for survival against wind and tide. Crews forced to fight for survival against wind and tide. The shoreline has witnessed countless rescues and tragedies, each leaving its mark not just on maps and records, but on the very energy of the place. Visitors often describe a sense of timelessness when they encounter the phenomenon. The lights and figures seem tethered to the memory of the shipwrecks, replaying events long past. There is no threat, only a haunting sense of presence, an echo of lives once lived and struggles once endured. The experience is immersive, pulling observers into a story that is both historical and supernatural. The shore itself enhances the haunting quality. Driftwood, broken boards, and scattered debris catch the moonlight, creating illusions of activity among the waves. The sound of water lapping against the sand mixes with imagined splashes and distant shouting, forming an almost cinematic scene. The environment seems to cooperate with the vision, amplifying the effect for those watching from the beach. Observers often notice subtle changes in the air and temperature. A faint smokiness, as if fires once used to signal or salvage wrecks linger in memory. Shadows stretch and twist with the movement of unseen figures. Attempts to record the phenomenon are rarely successful. Photographs and videos often fail to capture the lantern's glow or the figure's motion accurately. The effect is ephemeral, existing more fully in the mind and memory of the observer. Those who witness it describe the scene in vivid detail, recounting flickering lights, moving shadows, and the interplay of sound and surf that creates an unforgettable experience. The phenomenon is reported year-round, but storms and changing tides seem to influence its intensity. After particularly rough weather, the lights are brighter, the figures more active, as though the island is replaying its most tumultuous nights. Conversely, during calm periods, the appearance is softer, more subtle, like a quiet echo of what has been. The experience of encountering the phantom crew is both eerie and oddly comforting. The lights and figures remind observers that the past is never entirely gone. That the lives and struggles of those lost at sea are not forgotten. There is a rhythm to the visions, a repetition that mirrors the cycles of the tides. And the eternal presence of the ocean along Hunting Island. Visitors report a mixture of awe and respect as they witness the scene. The lanterns move methodically. The figures navigate the surf. And the sounds of splintering wood and distant shouts continue. Yet never pose a threat. It is a quiet, persistent reminder of human endeavor, struggle, and the unpredictable power of the sea. By dawn, the shoreline returns to its usual state. The waves are calm, the sand undisturbed, and the lanterns no longer flicker. The waves are calm, the sand undisturbed, and the lanterns no longer flicker. The waves are calm, the sand undisturbed, and the lanterns no longer flicker. The beach appears ordinary, almost empty, yet those who witness the events carry the memory with them. The beach appears ordinary, almost empty, yet those who witness the events carry the memory with them. The experience leaves a lingering impression, a connection to history, tragedy, and the enduring presence of lives intertwined with the island's shores. The experience leaves a lingering impression, a connection to history, tragedy, and the enduring presence of lives intertwined with the island's shores. The experience leaves a lingering impression, a connection to history, tragedy, and the enduring presence of lives intertwined with the island's shores. The experience leaves a lingering impression, a connection to history, tragedy, and the enduring presence of lives intertwined with the island's shores. The story of the shipwrecked crew of Hunting Island endures in local legend, passed down through generations. It is told with reverence, a reminder of the Islanda's history and the power of the sea. For anyone fortunate enough to witness the lights and shadows along the surf, the encounter is cinematic, immersive, and unforgettably a haunting bridge between the past and present that continues to captivate all who come to the shore. Even when the beach seems empty, the memory of the lights, the figures, and the sounds persists. Hunting Island has claimed many ships, yet in its quiet moments, It offers a glimpse of the lives that were lost. And the presence that still walks the surf. Forever connected to the rhythm of the ocean and the stories it carries along its shores. Edisto Beach is serene by day, its shores stretching with soft sand and gentle waves that glisten under the sun. Families walk along the shoreline, seagulls will overhead, and the rhythm of the ocean provides a steady, comforting backdrop. But when night falls, the atmosphere changes. The wind carries whispers across the sand, and the moon casts long, shifting shadows over the empty beach. It is in these quiet hours that the story of the crying child emerges, a tale that has endured for generations. Locals speak of a child who vanished many years ago, lost to the sands and surf in circumstances that were never fully explained. Visitors to the beach after dark have reported strange occurrences. Small footprints appear along the shoreline, pressed lightly into the sand as if left by tiny, unseen feet. These prints often follow the ebbing tide, tracing a path that seems to vanish into thin air. Along with the footprints, there are the cries. Faint at first, almost indistinguishable from the wind or the gentle crash of the waves. They grow more distinct as one draws nearer. Soft weeping echoes across the sand, fragile and full of sorrow. The sound is heartbreaking yet not threatening, carrying a sense of loss and longing that reaches deep into the heart of anyone who listens. Those who have heard it describe an immediate awareness of emptiness. The realization that the cries belong to someone who is no longer present in the world of the living. The phenomenon is elusive. As observers approach the source of the sound, the crying fades, retreating with each step. By the time they reach the spot, there is nothing but cold, undisturbed sand and the endless expanse of the shoreline. The footprints vanish without explanation, leaving no trace of the presence that moments before seemed so tangible. The child remains unseen. Yet the echo of sorrow lingers, imprinting itself on memory and imagination. The story has persisted for decades because the experiences are consistent. A fleeting awareness that someone is near but just out of sight creates a vivid impression, one that engages both sight and sound. And yet it cannot be physically captured or held. A reminder of the fragility of human experience and the mysteries that the natural world can hold. The setting of Edisto Beach contributes to the haunting nature of the experience. The sand stretches endlessly, meeting the dark water at a horizon that appears infinite under moonlight. The waves roll in with a steady rhythm, punctuated by the occasional splash against weathered pilings or rocks. Shadows shift across the shoreline, making familiar shapes seem strange and unfamiliar. It is a place of solitude and reflection, and in the quiet of night, the presence of the crying child feels almost like a companion to the darkness. Some witnesses report additional sensations alongside the auditory and visual phenomena. A sudden chill may sweep across the sand, or the wind may carry the faint scent of salt and seaweed with a strange weight of sadness. Others notice small disturbances in the sand, subtle depressions or patterns that suggest movement where none is seen. These details enhance the sense that something lingers here, a fragment of the past unwilling to be forgotten. The tale of the crying child has become part of the folklore of Edisto Beach. Locals recount it in hushed tones, warning those who explore the beach at night to listen carefully and respect the presence they may encounter. The story is not one of fear, but of memory and empathy. The child represents a life interrupted, a sorrow that remains in the place where it occurred, echoing across time and tide. Researchers and storytellers have been drawn to the phenomenon, seeking to document and understand it. While no concrete evidence exists beyond personal accounts, the consistency of these experiences is compelling. The cries, the footprints, and the fleeting sense of presence are reported by different people over decades, suggesting a phenomenon tied closely to the history and landscape of the beach. It is a story preserved not in books or photographs, but in the collective memory of those who walk the shoreline at night. The Crying Child of Edisto Beach. reminds all who hear the tale that the past is never truly gone. Even in the absence of physical proof, the echoes of human experience can remain, woven into the environment in ways that are subtle yet undeniable. The soft weeping, the tiny footprints, the empty shoreline, all serve as a poignant reminder of lives touched by tragedy and the enduring power of memory. When the tide is low and the moon hangs high, the beach transforms into a place where history and present converge. The waves reflect silver light across the sand, shadows stretch and sway, and the cries may rise again, fragile and fleeting. Those who listen are left with a mixture of awe and melancholy, carrying the memory of the child with them long after they leave the shore. Edisto Beach after dark becomes a canvas for the invisible, a space where the lost are remembered, and the living can bear witness to their presence. The crying child endures in the whispers of the wind and the soft patterns in the sand, a quiet testament to the enduring connection between place, memory, and the human heart. It is a haunting that is gentle yet profound, leaving its mark on all who take the time to see, hear, and feel. Folly's Island stretches along the South Carolina coast, its beaches wide and golden, fringed with dunes that rise like small hills against the horizon. By day, the island is alive with sunlight and the gentle rhythm of the Atlantic waves, drawing families, walkers, and travelers to its soft sands. But as evening falls, the landscape takes on a different character. Shadows grow long, the wind carries the tang of salt and seaweed, and a quiet stillness settles over the dunes. It is in this time, between sunset and darkness, that travelers have reported seeing a dark figure on the dunes. At first, it appears as a vague shadow, standing motionless against the fading light. Observers describe a presence that is both commanding and silent, a figure that watches without moving, its gaze seemingly fixed on the distant shoreline. The sight is unsettling because of its clarity and its elusiveness, a figure that seems real, yet impossible to approach. Attempts to get closer are often met with a strange and sudden disappearance. Witnesses report walking carefully across the sand, drawing nearer step by step, only to find the shadow gone when they reach the spot. The dunes appear empty, the sand undisturbed, and the air still, carrying only the sound of waves and the whisper of wind. The figure leaves no trace except for the lingering sense of being observed. Local legend suggests the shadow may belong to a farmer who lived centuries ago, a man known for his courage and devotion to his family. During a violent storm, he is said to have risked everything to protect his loved ones, guiding them to safety while the winds and rain battered the island. He did not survive the night, yet some believe that his presence remained, bound to the dunes he once called home, watching over the island and those who walk its sands. The atmosphere of the dunes reinforces the legend. As the sun sinks, the sand reflects the warm light in gold and orange, casting long, stretching shadows that can seem to move with the tide. A gentle breeze shifts the grasses, whispering across the ridges, and the waves break rhythmically, their sound steady and eternal. In this setting, the appearance of a figure is both eerie and poignant, a reminder of human stories tied to the land and the sea. Witnesses describe a feeling of tension mixed with awe. The figure does not make a sound, yet its presence seems to speak, commanding attention without words. Some feel the weight of history pressing down, a connection to a life lived long ago. Others experience a chill or a brief tightening in the chest, a physical reminder that the past is not entirely gone, and that some stories linger in the spaces around us. The figure is rarely seen during daylight. It appears as the horizon darkens, when the dunes become a place of silhouettes and shifting light. The mystery is enhanced by the changing landscape. Sand dunes are never still, they move with the wind, rising and falling, creating shapes and shadows that seem to shift unexpectedly. In this way, the shadow blends with the natural rhythm of the island, emerging and disappearing like a memory caught between waves and time. Accounts of the shadow vary. Some describe it as tall and broad, a silhouette that suggests a strong, determined presence. Others see a more subtle form, almost ephemeral, as though the figure is a suggestion rather than a person. In every case, the effect is the same, a sense of awareness, of being watched, followed by a sudden and mysterious disappearance that leaves the observer questioning what was real. The shadow has become a part of Folly's Island folklore, a story passed down through generations. Families who have lived on the island for decades speak of it with respect and a quiet reverence, warning travelers to approach the dunes with caution and awareness. It is not a presence meant to frighten, but rather a reminder of courage, loss, and the endurance of memory in the natural world. Some visitors have reported seeing the figure in multiple locations along the dunes, as if it moves unseen, observing from one vantage point to another. Others feel a subtle energy in the air, a shift in temperature or a faint whisper carried by the wind, as if the farmer's spirit is guiding them or ensuring they notice his watchfulness. The island itself seems alive in these moments, the land and the sea entwined with human memory, holding on to a story that refuses to fade. As night deepens and the sky turns indigo, the shadow vanishes, blending seamlessly with the darkened dunes. Travelers are left with the empty sand beneath their feet, and the steady rhythm of the waves. Yet the impression of the figure lingers. The warmth of memory and the weight of history can still be felt. In the quiet of the island, a reminder that the past continues to exist alongside the present. The shadow on the dunes of Folly's Island endures as a silent guardian, a presence tied to a story of bravery and devotion. Those who walk the beach after sunset may catch a glimpse of it, standing patiently against the horizon, watching, waiting, a figure suspended between history and the present. It is a reminder that the island holds more than sand and water. It carries the echoes of lives lived, the courage of a farmer long gone, and the quiet certainty that some stories never truly disappear. Kiowa Island is a place where the land meets the Atlantic in a delicate balance of dunes, marshes, and quiet beaches. By day, the island is bathed in sunlight, with waves rolling gently onto the sand and the cries of seabirds filling the air. By night, however, the island transforms. Shadows stretch across the dunes, the ocean becomes a dark expanse, and the wind carries a chill that hints at something beyond the ordinary. The lantern appears without warning. At first, it is a faint glow on the horizon, a warm light that seems almost friendly against the darkness of the night. Observers describe it as floating above the sand, moving with a slow, deliberate rhythm. It drifts along the shoreline, heading toward the dunes, never hurried, never erratic. There is an uncanny steadiness to its movement, as if it knows exactly where it is going and what it is searching for. Those who have seen the lantern often report a feeling of unease that accompanies it. The light is warm, but the air around it is icy, chilling the skin, and filling the chest with a weight that is hard to describe. It is not simply cold, it is the sensation of being watched, of something unseen pressing against the edge of perception. Many describe the feeling as heavy, almost tangible, like a presence moving just behind them, always there but never visible. The lantern's path is consistent. It follows the shoreline toward the dunes, tracing a line that has been observed by countless witnesses over the years. Some have attempted to follow it, walking carefully along the wet sand, their eyes fixed on the glow. The lantern does not run, and yet it seems always just out of reach, drifting ahead with a patience that is both unnerving and mesmerizing. The dunes loom closer, and with each step, the sense of being accompanied intensifies, an invisible companion keeping pace without revealing itself. The origins of the Lantern of the Lost remain a mystery. Some suggest it is the ghost of a shipwrecked sailor, searching for home or perhaps for others lost at sea. Others believe it is the spirit of someone who perished along the shore, forever tied to the island and unable to leave. No records confirm any story definitively, and yet the sightings persist. Each report adds to the legend, reinforcing the idea that Kiowa Island is a place where the past and present coexist, and where the natural and supernatural intersect in subtle, haunting ways. Visitors often describe the lantern as a beacon of both curiosity and fear. The glow draws attention, almost commanding those who see it to follow. Yet every step closer increases the awareness of the unseen presence behind them. It is an experience that heightens all senses. The sound of the wind, the faint crashing of waves, and the rustle of marsh grasses become amplified. Each one a reminder that the island is not entirely empty. Something watches from the shadows, patient and persistent, keeping pace with the living without revealing its form. Some accounts describe small variations in the lanterna's movement. It may pause at the edge of a dune, hovering as if examining the world beyond. Or drift closer to the water, as though contemplating the pull of the ocean. Yet its purpose seems singular, to move forward, steadily and without deviation, repeating the path it has followed for generations. Those who witness it feel a sense of ritual, a timeless routine that continues regardless of the passing years. The island itself contributes to the atmosphere of the legend. The dunes are steep and shifting, the sand cool beneath the feet, and the marshes give off a subtle fragrance of salt and wet earth. Darkness falls quickly, and fog often rolls in, softening the landscape and obscuring distant objects. In this environment, the lanterna's glow becomes more vivid, more alive. It casts long shadows, highlights the contours of the dunes, and creates an impression that the landscape is responding to its presence, bending to accommodate its slow passage. Some have theorized that natural phenomena could explain the lantern, suggesting bioluminescent algae, distant lights from boats, or reflections of the moon. Yet those who have experienced it insist that none of these explanations account for the consistency, the deliberate movement, or the feeling of being followed. The lantern seems to exist on a plane just beyond the natural world, a manifestation of memory, grief, or unfinished purpose. Its path and the unseen companion give the impression that the island itself is alive, holding onto a fragment of history that refuses to fade. The legend of the Lantern of the Lost has endured because it is simple yet profound. A light in the darkness, moving with purpose, accompanied by a presence that cannot be seen but is undeniably felt. It is a story of mystery, solitude, and the lingering echoes of lives once intertwined with the land. Visitors who see it leave with a mixture of awe and trepidation, aware that they have witnessed something beyond ordinary perception, something that connects them to a past that still walks the shores of Kiowa Island. Visitors who see it leave with a mixture of awe and trepidation, aware that they have witnessed something beyond ordinary perception, something that connects them to a past that still walks the shores of Kiowa Island. On nights when the fog is thick and the tide is high, the lantern appears again. It drifts along the shoreline, warm against the darkness, carrying with it a presence unseen but deeply felt. Step by step, it moves toward the dunes, its path unchanging, timeless, and mesmerizing. Those who follow understand that the lantern is not merely a light. It is a bridge between worlds, a quiet reminder that some spirits never rest, some stories never end, and some mysteries endure as surely as the tides themselves. Deweese Island sits quietly along the coast, its beaches stretching into the low light of evening. By day, the island is serene, waves lapping gently against sand and marsh, birds calling across the saltwater marshes, and the air carrying the scent of sea and pine. Yet when darkness falls, the island transforms. The calm is broken by a sound that seems both impossible and familiar, a deep, resonant ship's horn echoing across the water. The horn carries with it an authority, a warning that cuts through the quiet night. Its source is impossible to locate. The waters remain empty, no vessel in sight, yet the sound is undeniable. Locals have long associated it with a vessel lost long ago, a ship claimed by treacherous currents and shifting sands. The legend says that the horn is a ghostly call, a warning from the depths, echoing across the decades. Those who hear it describe a shiver that runs through the air. The sound is low and deep, resonating through the water, the sand, and the very atmosphere of the island. It is a sound that seems alive, stretching and fading, warning and beckoning. At the same time, observers speak of an uncanny feeling that the sea itself has memory. That the horn is not merely sound but the echo of tragedy preserved across time. That the horn is not merely sound but the echo of tragedy preserved across time. That the horn is not merely sound but the echo of tragedy preserved across time. Sometimes, after the horn sounds, figures appear in the surf. They are faint at first, shadows that shimmer at the edges of vision. As observers focus, the shapes become clearer, like sailors waving toward the shore, calling out in a language lost to the living. The figures move with purpose, yet their forms flicker and fade, leaving only the sensation of presence. By the time anyone steps closer, the surf is empty, and the water is calm once more. The effect of these sightings is haunting. The combination of sound, shadow, and movement creates an immersive experience that feels cinematic and profound. The mind struggles to reconcile the familiar sound of a ship's horn with the empty waters and the vanishing figures. It is an encounter with history, memory, and mystery, all wrapped into a single nocturnal performance on the island's shores. The legend of the lost vessel is rooted in history. Records tell of ships that vanished in the waters around Deweese Island. Claimed by storms, shifting channels, or simple misfortune. Crews were lost, vessels sank, and the shoreline remained as witness. Over time, the horn became a symbol, a link to the past. A manifestation of caution, warning travelers of dangers that persist even decades later. The island itself adds to the atmosphere. Shadows stretch and bend across the dunes. And the reflection of the moon shimmers along the surface of the water. Against this quiet backdrop, the horn and the fleeting figures become vivid, commanding attention and holding it. Witnesses report subtle changes in the environment when the horn sounds. The air grows heavier, carrying the scent of salt and brine more strongly. Waves seem to pause mid-motion, the water reflecting light in sharper contrast. A faint vibration travels through the sand and the legs of those standing along the shore. It is as if the island itself acknowledges the presence of the horn, amplifying its impact and lending credibility to what would otherwise be impossible. Those who have experienced the phenomenon often describe a sense of connection. The figures in the surf are not threatening, but they evoke empathy. Reminding observers of lives lost and struggles endured. The horn is both a warning and a call, bridging the gap between the living and the past. It is a reminder of the unforgiving nature of the sea and the resilience of memory. The appearance of the figures is fleeting, their presence tied to the hornet's sound. Some describe them gesturing as if signaling, pointing toward the horizon or toward the shore. As if continuing duties that were interrupted long ago. Their movements are deliberate, yet ephemeral, like echoes of actions preserved in time. Each sighting is unique, yet they share a common thread, the interplay of light, shadow, and sound that defines the haunting. The sound of the horn can vary. Sometimes it is low and distant, fading quickly into the night. Other times it is loud and commanding, reverberating across the water with surprising intensity. Each iteration carries the same sense of purpose, an alert from a vessel that no longer exists in the physical world, yet endures in memory, legend, and presence. Observers often describe a mixture of awe and reverence. The horn and the figures create a moment that feels sacred, a connection to the past that transcends ordinary experience. It is not fear that dominates, but respect, curiosity, and a deep sense of wonder. For those who witness it, the island becomes a stage for history played out against the backdrop of the sea and sky. By morning, the phenomenon fades. The horn ceases. The figures vanish. And the waters of Deweese Island return to their normal rhythm. Waves lap gently. The sand shifts under the sun and the dunes reflect soft morning light. Yet for those who have experienced the encounter, the memory lingers. The sound, the shadows and the presence of the lost crew are carried forward. Etched into the mind long after the island appears ordinary once more. The Sheepah's horn of Deweese Island endures as a story of connection between past and present. A haunting reminder of lives interrupted by the sea. The horn is a bridge, carrying the voices of the lost across time. And the enduring mystery that lies just beyond sight along the shoreline. Even when the night is quiet and the waters calm, the possibility remains. The horn could sound again. The figures could appear. And the island will come alive. With echoes of a past that refuses to be forgotten. Preserving the story of the shipwrecked crew. For anyone willing to listen. Capers Island rests quietly along the coast, its marshes and dunes stretching under a sky often painted in muted shades of gray and gold. By day, the island appears serene, a place of sand, wind, and water meeting in natural harmony. But as the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere shifts. The wind begins to carry sounds that are not entirely natural, whispers that seem to originate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Visitors to the island after dark report a sensation unlike anything felt during daylight hours. The wind brings faint murmurs, voices that brush across the ear with delicate insistence. At first, they are indistinguishable from the rustling of leaves or the sigh of waves against the shore. Then, slowly, the words become clearer. Names are spoken softly, sometimes familiar, sometimes unknown. Occasional warnings drift along the gusts, as if the island itself seeks to communicate with those who traverse its sands and marshes. Those who hear the whispers often describe a feeling of being guided, drawn toward safe paths through the dunes or along narrow tidal channels. The voices seem almost protective at times, carrying an urgency that directs attention to potential hazards hidden by darkness. Travelers report that stepping carefully in response to these subtle cues has kept them from losing footing in marshy areas or becoming disoriented among the dunes. The effect is ethereal, a combination of instinct and something beyond explanation. Yet the wind does not always offer guidance. Some visitors recount experiences in which the whispers led them in circles, deeper into the wilderness of the island. Names are called repeatedly, faint and beckoning, while the terrain seems to shift underfoot, familiar landmarks disappearing as quickly as they appear. A sense of unease grows in these moments, as if the very air conspires to confuse and disorient. The wind is both a guide and a trickster, a presence that can bring safety or fear depending on how its messages are received. The whispers of Capers Island have been a part of local lore for generations. Fishermen, hunters, and occasional explorers have passed down stories of voices carried by the wind. Of people arriving safely at low tide thanks to guidance from unseen sources. Or of others wandering until exhaustion forced them to seek shelter. The accounts are varied, yet consistent in their core. The wind carries voices that are not merely echoes of human activity, but something more deliberate and mysterious. Even those who arrive with no knowledge of the Islanda's legends feel the effect. The wind shifts in subtle ways, brushing against the skin and tugging at clothing. Murmurs form, coaxing the mind to listen more closely. Some report hearing the voices as distinct phrases, while others feel them as impressions. Curiosity mixes with caution, as travelers sense that the whispers are aware of them. Responding to presence, attention, and movement. The geography of Capers Island enhances the phenomenon. Narrow tidal creeks, dense patches of marsh grass, and shifting dunes create natural channels for sound. Shadows from the moon stretch across sand and marsh, creating illusions of movement and space. Every element of the environment contributes to the haunting and immersive quality of the whispers, making it difficult to separate the natural from the extraordinary. Some visitors have reported small, subtle signs that accompany the whispers. Tiny depressions in the sand, disturbed grasses, or faint impressions of footsteps suggest movement that cannot be explained. Others feel sudden temperature shifts, as though a presence is brushing past them without making contact. These small details heighten the sense of reality, grounding the auditory experience in something tactile, even if the source remains unseen. The legend of the Whispering Wind has become part of Capers Island's identity. Locals speak of it in cautious tones, acknowledging the island's power while warning newcomers to approach with respect. Those who listen carefully are often rewarded with a sense of connection to the landscape, a feeling that the island is alive and aware. The whispers are not menacing, yet they command attention, offering both guidance and challenge to those who venture too deeply without awareness. The experiences vary from visitor to visitor. Some leave feeling reassured, having sensed a path guided by unseen hands. Others depart unsettled, aware of the fragility of perception and the ease with which the wind can mislead. In every case, the phenomenon leaves a lasting impression, a memory intertwined with the landscape itself, carried forward in thought long after the island is left behind. Capers Island at night becomes a place where time and space feel malleable. The wind is the storyteller, carrying fragments of history, caution, and awareness across dunes and tidal waters. The whispers speak of what was, what might be, and what remains in the spaces between reality and imagination. Names called softly, warnings conveyed with urgency, and guidance offered in fleeting moments create an experience that is at once immersive and ephemeral. The Whispering Wind endures as a symbol of the Islanda's mystery and power. It reminds visitors that the natural world holds subtle presences that may not be seen, yet are experienced through sound, movement, and emotion. Those who walk the dunes and marshes at night carry the memory of the voices with them, replaying the sensation of being guided or lost, of hearing names called across the darkness, and of sensing a consciousness woven into the wind. Capers Island is not simply a place of sand and water. It is a landscape alive with stories, history, and memory, carried on the wind in whispers that can save, confuse, or inspire. Every visitor who listens closely becomes part of the enduring rhythm of the island, attuned to the voices that rise and fall with the night air. The wind continues to speak, naming the lost, offering guidance, and challenging those who venture across its sands, leaving each encounter with the haunting awareness that the unseen is never truly absent. Seabrook Island lies along the South Carolina coast, a place where sand meets sea in an endless horizon. The beaches are wide and soft, stretching beneath the warm sun by day, and under the silver glow of the moon at night. The waves lap gently against the shore, carrying the salt of the Atlantic, and the quiet rhythm of a world in motion. By evening, when the light fades and the wind shifts, the island takes on a different character. One that is quieter, slower, and filled with shadows. It is along this waterline that travelers have reported seeing a woman in white. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with a sorrow that seems to reach across time. Her presence is unmistakable, leaving those who see her with a feeling of deep unease and curiosity. Witnesses say the woman appears most often at twilight, when the sun dips toward the horizon and the world is painted in gold and gray. She moves with purpose, tracing the shoreline, yet there is a sadness in her gait, a quiet longing that seems to echo through the wind. As observers approach, hoping to see her more clearly or to understand her story, she vanishes, dissolving into the air as if carried away by the sea breeze. What remains are the footprints in the wet sand. Often there are two sets, one following the other, leading into the waves. They start clearly, pressed into the earth by steps that seem ordinary, yet they do not end with any return. Instead, the prints disappear beneath the water, erased by the tide but leaving a memory that is impossible to ignore. For those who find them, the sensation is haunting, a tangible trace of someone who is no longer visible yet was undeniably present. Local legend suggests that the woman may have been lost to the sea long ago, a figure whose life ended tragically along the shore. Some accounts speak of a young bride, waiting for her love to return from a voyage that never concluded. Others tell of a mother searching for a child carried away by the waves during a storm. Whatever her story, it is carried in the movement of her figure, in the sorrow etched into her face, and in the footprints that vanish into the surf. Observers often describe a strange calm that settles over the beach when she appears. The waves seem to pause, the wind shifts, and the horizon grows still as if the island itself acknowledges her presence. The effect is subtle yet profound, a quiet moment when the ordinary world gives way to something otherworldly. Those who have seen her speak of the weight of her sadness, a presence that is gentle but persistent, pressing softly on the imagination and the senses. Some travelers have followed the footprints along the beach, tracing them as far as the water allows. They say the sand is cooler beneath their feet near the prints, and the sound of the surf feels amplified, as though the sea itself is echoing the steps. The two sets of prints suggest a companion or a search, a longing repeated in parallel paths. Yet no figure emerges from the waves, and the woman in white remains unseen, a phantom that exists at the threshold between the known and the unknown. Even in the daytime, when the island is bright and warm, the memory of the woman lingers in stories and in the imagination of those who walk the shore. Locals share tales of sightings, recounting the shape of her dress, the sorrow in her eyes, and the footprints that disappear beneath the surf. Visitors speak of an awareness that they are not alone. A sense that someone is walking beside them even when no one is visible. The phenomenon is unpredictable. Some evenings pass without any trace. The sand smooth and untouched. On other nights, she appears in a line of clarity, moving along the waterline with a presence that feels both fragile and enduring. Those who encounter her often describe a mixture of fear and fascination, a feeling that they have glimpsed a story that refuses to be fully understood, yet is impossible to forget. The woman in white of Seabrook Island is not threatening. She does not call out, does not gesture aggressively, and does not impose upon those who see her. Her story is one of quiet sorrow, of presence felt rather than explained. The footprints serve as a reminder that she exists somewhere between the world of the living and the mysteries carried by the sea. They are evidence of a journey that continues, steps that persist even when the traveler has disappeared from sight. As night falls and the sky darkens, the footprints vanish beneath the tide. The beach returns to its natural rhythm, the waves rolling in and out, the wind rustling through the dunes, and the sand smooth once more. Yet for those who have witnessed her, the experience remains vivid. The woman in white, the sorrow in her eyes, and the footprints leading into the water linger in memory, a haunting and beautiful presence along the shore. Seabrook Island holds on to her story, a quiet reminder of love, loss, and the persistence of memory. Each evening she walks the waterline, carrying with her the weight of what was lost, leaving footprints that vanish into the waves, and offering those who see her a glimpse of something beyond the ordinary. In the ebb and flow of the tide, in the shifting sands and the whisper of the wind, the woman in white endures. An enduring mystery of the island's quiet shores. Folly River winds gently through marshes and lowlands, its waters reflecting the colors of the sky and the slow sway of reeds along its banks. By day, it is a peaceful place, where birds glide over the surface and the cries of distant ospreys punctuate the air. The river carries the scent of salt and earth, a living reminder of the life that thrives along its edges. But at night, the river becomes a different place, quiet yet charged with an uneasy presence that lingers just beneath the surface. Decades ago, a fisherman set out onto Folly River in his small wooden boat. He was experienced, familiar with every bend of the water and the hidden channels that carried the tide inland. That night, however, he never returned. The next morning, his boat washed ashore empty, his nets tangled and scattered, as if he had simply vanished into the water itself. Searches yielded nothing. Friends and family mourned. But the river gave no answers, holding its secrets in its depths. Over the years, sightings began to emerge. Locals and travelers spoke of faint lights bobbing on the water at night. Some described the lights as warm, steady, and almost comforting. Yet there was a melancholy to them, a sense that they belonged to someone or something lost. Others claimed the glow was accompanied by a quiet ripple of movement, as if an unseen hand moved along the surface, gathering nets, tending to duties that could no longer be completed. Those who observe the lights describe a strange feeling of presence. It is not threatening, but it is undeniable, a weight in the air that hints at someone watching from just beyond sight. The river itself seems to respond to the phenomenon. The gentle lapping of waves, the rustle of reeds, the soft cry of an owl all become part of an atmosphere thick with expectation and remembrance. The water reflects more than moonlight and stars, it seems to hold the memory of a life interrupted, a routine frozen in time. The origin of the lights is shrouded in speculation. Some say they are the spirit of the fisherman, his lantern still bobbing on the water as he searches for the nets he lost, compelled by duty even beyond death. Others argue that the lights are a trick of the river itself, reflections and bioluminescent creatures combining to form illusions that capture the imagination. Yet for those who have experienced it firsthand, the phenomenon feels purposeful, intentional, as if the river itself preserves the memory of the man who vanished within it. Witnesses recount the way the lights move. They drift slowly along the river, sometimes stopping near old fishing spots, hovering briefly, then continuing along the familiar route. People who watch the lights feel a connection to the past, a bridge across time that allows them to glimpse the rhythm of the river as it once was, the unseen presence of someone bound to its flow. The river at night enhances the mystery. Shadows stretch across the water, blending with reeds and driftwood, creating shapes that might suggest movement where there is none. Fog sometimes rises off the surface, thickening the darkness and softening the edges of the world. The lights appear more vivid, more alive, small beacons in the blackness that draw attention and imagination alike. The air carries the faint scent of salt and mud, a reminder that this is a place where the living and the memory of the lost coexist. Local lore has preserved the story for generations. Families share tales of the fishermen with their children, recounting the empty boat, the scattered nets, and the glowing lantern that drifts along the river at night. The story is told not to frighten, but to honor the man who disappeared, to remember his life and his connection to the water. The lights are a form of memory, a spectral routine that continues regardless of the passage of years, a way for the river to hold on to the past. Some who follow the lights report a deep sense of calm mixed with sorrow. The presence behind the lantern is palpable, unseen yet real, a companion to the observer that carries both history and mystery. The lantern leads, and yet it does not guide in the traditional sense. It is a reminder of continuity, of duty unfulfilled, and of the persistence of memory in the face of absence. The river, once a simple passage for life and work, becomes a stage for a story that transcends generations. The phenomenon persists as a testament to the Rivera's enduring power to preserve memory. Each night, the lantern drifts along Folly River, tracing a path that has been known for decades. It moves slowly toward the dunes and bends in the water, lights bobbing in rhythm with invisible currents, carrying with it the essence of a man who vanished too soon. Those who witness it feel both awe and reverence, understanding that the lantern is more than a glow. It is a symbol of the connection between life and loss, between the living and the memory of those who remain unseen. Between the living and the memory of those who remain unseen. On nights when the water is calm and the stars reflect in its surface, the lantern appears once again. Observers see it drift along familiar paths, warm against the darkness. accompanied by the weight of an unseen presence that follows silently. Step by step, it moves with intention, repeating a journey that began decades ago, reminding all who watch that some stories never end. Some duties remain unfulfilled, and some spirits linger, forever bound to the places they loved in life, and cannot leave in death. Cherry Grove Beach stretches along the coastline, its sands shifting with the rhythm of the tides. During the day, the shoreline is peaceful, waves rolling gently against the dunes, and the wind carrying the scent of salt and seaweed. But after a storm, the landscape changes. The air is heavier, the sand disturbed, and an eerie calm descends over the beach. It is during these quiet hours that locals report seeing ghostly silhouettes along the shore. The figures are faint at first, appearing like shadows cast against the wet sand, yet they move with purpose and intent. Observers describe the shapes as human, carrying belongings as though they have emerged from the storm to reclaim what was lost. The sight is both haunting and captivating, blending the natural aftermath of the storm with something that feels otherworldly. The figures appear to walk along the beach, following paths that twist and curve like memories etched into the sand. They seem unaware of observers, focused entirely on tasks unknown. Some carry bundles, others clutch indistinct shapes, but all move with a deliberate rhythm, as if completing a routine that has persisted across time. The silhouettes do not speak, yet their presence conveys emotion, a quiet determination, a lingering connection to life interrupted. The phenomenon is subtle yet unmistakable. As witnesses approach, the figures fade like mist in the morning sun. They vanish before anyone can touch them, leaving no trace behind. Sand is undisturbed except for what the tide may have shifted, and the waves return to their ordinary pattern, as though the figures had never been there. The experience is fleeting, yet it leaves a lasting impression, a memory as vivid as any real encounter. History provides context to the sightings. Cherry Grove Beach has endured countless storms over the years, each leaving destruction in its wake. Homes were damaged, belongings washed away, and lives disrupted by wind and water. Locals believe the silhouettes are the echoes of people returning to the shore after disaster, performing rituals or tasks that were left incomplete. The storms act as a trigger, opening a window into the past and allowing these ghostly reenactments to manifest. The atmosphere after a storm enhances the haunting effect. The sky is often heavy with lingering clouds, and the wind whistles through the dunes in low, mournful tones. Waves crash unevenly, leaving pools of water that reflect the gray sky. Shadows lengthen across the sand, bending and stretching with the dim light. Against this backdrop, the silhouettes appear vivid, a moving contrast to the stillness of the environment. Witnesses often report a mixture of curiosity and awe. The figures are not threatening, but they evoke a deep emotional response. There is a sense of reverence, a recognition of lives intertwined with the land and the sea. Observers feel connected to something larger, an invisible thread that links the present moment to events long past. The sight of the storm ghosts is both mysterious and moving, a reminder of impermanence and resilience. The movements of the silhouettes are precise and deliberate. They trace the contours of the beach, move toward the water, and then retreat again, as though following a pattern invisible to the living eye. Their rhythm mirrors the natural cycles of the ocean, ebbing and flowing in time with the waves. Each sighting is unique, yet consistent in its portrayal of tasks, gestures, and purpose. The sensory experience of the phenomenon is striking. The soundscape blends natural and supernatural elements. The wind carries faint whispers, the rustle of wet sand, and the distant crash of water, creating the illusion that the figures are accompanied by subtle sound. Observers report feeling a chill in the air, even when temperatures are mild, and a weight in the atmosphere that suggests something unseen is present. Even during daylight hours following a storm, the memory of the silhouettes lingers. Footprints appear and vanish, shadows seem to shift in corners of vision, and the reflective surface of shallow pools hints at movement just beyond perception. These subtle reminders reinforce the presence of the storm ghosts, keeping their memory alive long after the actual sightings end. Local tradition has grown around the sightings. Residents share stories passed down from generation to generation, recounting nights when the beach seemed alive with human echoes. Some speak of lessons learned, others of respect for the forces of nature. And all acknowledge the persistent mystery of the figures. The phenomenon has become part of the identity of Cherry Grove Beach. An invisible thread linking the community to its history. The storm ghosts of Cherry Grove are a testament to the power of memory and the lingering impact of extraordinary events. They are not harmful, but they are compelling, a bridge between past and present. The figures remind observers of the fragility of human life, the endurance of effort, and the ways in which events leave traces on both landscape and consciousness. By morning, the beach returns to normal. The wind dies down, the waves settle, and the sand takes on a calm, undisturbed appearance. Yet for those who witnessed the silhouettes, the memory remains vivid. The sight of the figures, their purposeful movements, and the echo of a storm past lingers, etched into the mind and imagination. Cherry Grove Beach stands as a place where nature and history intersect, where storms not only shape the landscape but also reveal traces of lives once entwined with it. The storm ghosts remind anyone who witnesses them that some moments, some actions, and some presences are never entirely lost. They return with the tide, appearing in fleeting glimpses, carrying stories of endurance, loss, and the quiet persistence of memory along the shores of the island. Little River lies quietly along the coastline, a place where water meets land in gentle waves and shifting sands. By day, the bay is calm, filled with the routines of fishermen preparing nets, small boats bobbing with the tide, and gulls circling overhead. Sunlight glimmers on the water's surface, revealing hints of the past beneath, the outlines of sunken vessels resting silently on the seabed. But as evening falls, the familiar sounds of the harbor fade, replaced by an atmosphere that feels both tranquil and unsettling. Fishermen and locals have long spoken of strange occurrences near the wrecks. As the sun dips behind the horizon and darkness spreads over the water, a haunting melody sometimes rises from the bay. The singing is ethereal, beautiful yet unearthly, drifting across the water as though carried by the wind itself. The source is impossible to locate. Yet the sound is unmistakable, drawing attention with a magnetic, almost irresistible quality. The songs seem to emanate from the sunken ships that lie just beneath the surface. These vessels, claimed by storms and time, are resting places for the lost and forgotten. Their wooden beams and iron hulls are softened by salt and age, hidden beneath layers of sand and water. Yet from these watery graves, the voices appear to rise, carrying emotion and longing that transcends the silence of the deep. Those who hear the songs often describe them as simultaneously joyful and sorrowful, a combination that lingers in the mind long after the sounds fade. Stories passed down by local fishermen recount nights spent on small boats, when the melody began softly and grew stronger as they neared the locations of the wrecks. The voice seems to call out to the living, drawing the curious closer, while remaining just out of reach. Some describe feeling a gentle tug, an invisible force encouraging them to approach the source. Others report the music weaving in and out of perception, rising above the lapping of waves and then fading into a silence that is both profound and unsettling. The phenomenon has a timeless quality. Locals say the songs have been heard for decades, perhaps centuries, long before modern fishing vessels appeared on the water. Each account is similar, the sudden appearance of music where no one is visible, the pull towards sunken wrecks, and the strange mixture of awe and caution it inspires. Those who experience it describe an emotional resonance that cannot be explained by natural sounds alone. The melody seems alive, aware, and intimately tied to the history of the bay. Each account is similar, the sudden appearance of music where no one is visible, the pull towards sunken wrecks, and the strange mixture of awe and caution it inspires. Those who experience it describe an emotional resonance that cannot be explained by natural sounds alone. The melody seems alive, aware, and intimately tied to the history of the bay. The wrecks themselves add to the mystique. Many were merchant or fishing vessels that succumbed to storms, tides, or human error. Their remains are scattered across the shallow waters near the shoreline, partially exposed at low tide, yet mostly hidden beneath the gentle swells. It is here, amidst broken masts and rusted hulls, that the songs are said to originate. The water reflects moonlight and starlight, casting silvery patterns across the surface and enhancing the sense that something beyond the ordinary is present. Witnesses often report a combination of auditory and visual experiences. As the singing rises, the water can shimmer with a strange iridescence, small ripples forming where no wind is present. Occasionally, the faint outline of movement beneath the waves can be glimpsed, though the source is never identifiable. This combination of sight and sound reinforces the impression that the phenomenon is real, a bridge between the physical world and something more mysterious. The songs are not frightening in a traditional sense, but they evoke a deep emotional response. Some who hear them feel a pull of curiosity, a desire to uncover the source and understand its meaning. Others experience a sense of melancholy, sensing the sorrow and loss embedded in the melodies. It is as if the voices carry the memories of those who perished at sea, preserving fragments of their lives and emotions in an invisible, sonic memorial. The sirens of Little River are as unpredictable as the tides. Sometimes the music appears for only a few moments, a brief and fleeting whisper across the water. Other times it lingers, enveloping boats and shoreline in a haunting symphony that seems suspended outside of time. Those who listen carefully often leave with a heightened awareness of the sea, attuned to its moods and mysteries in ways that ordinary experience cannot replicate. For generations, the phenomenon has shaped the identity of the area. Explorers and enthusiasts are drawn to the wrecks at night, hoping to experience the music firsthand, and leaving with stories that blend wonder, history, and the unexplained. Each encounter contributes to the enduring legacy of the shipwreck sirens, preserving the mystery and fascination of Little River. The singing remains a reminder of the ocean's power, and the lives it has claimed, of sailors who never returned to shore, and of the ways in which memory and history linger in unexpected forms. The water carries more than fish and tides. It holds stories, voices, and echoes that connect past and present. Little River at night becomes a place of reverence and awe. The waves reflect the moonlight while the siren's song drifts across the surface, calling attention to the hidden wrecks below. The melodies evoke a world where history and legend intertwine, where the unseen is as present as the tangible, and where curiosity is met with both guidance and mystery. Those who hear the shipwreck sirens carry the memory of the experience with them, replaying the haunting, beautiful songs in their minds. The wrecks remain silent and hidden beneath the water. Yet their voices rise, timeless and evocative, ensuring that the stories of Little River continue to resonate for generations to come. Eatingsville Beach stretches along the South Carolina coast, its sands soft and golden by day, kissed by the gentle waves of the Atlantic. The area is quiet now, a place where visitors come to walk along the shoreline, collect shells, or watch the sun dip toward the horizon. Yet beneath the calm surface lies a history marked by fire and destruction, a past that continues to leave its mark on the present in ways that defy ordinary understanding. More than a century ago, a devastating fire swept through parts of Eatingsville Beach. Buildings and homes were reduced to ash, their charred remains carried away by wind and tide. The community rebuilt as best it could, but the memory of the fire lingered, etched into the land and the stories of those who survived. Locals speak of a strange phenomenon that occurs at night along the water. When the sky is dark and the moon casts a pale light across the waves, flames appear on the surface of the sea. They flicker and dance, small but unmistakable, reflecting in patterns that mimic the movement of real fire. There is no smoke, no heat, and no structure burning along the shore. Yet the sight is undeniable, a ghostly echo of the blaze that once consumed the beach. Witnesses describe the flames as flickering gold and orange, shifting with the motion of the water. Some report seeing the lights move in patterns, as if dancing in response to an invisible rhythm. Others notice that the fire seems to react to human presence, flaring more brightly when approached and fading when observed too closely. The experience is fleeting, a moment of beauty and mystery that vanishes almost as soon as it is discovered. The origin of the phenomenon is the subject of speculation. Some believe it is a natural occurrence, a play of light and reflection created by the moon and the waves. Others see it as something far more mysterious, a lingering memory of the fire that refuses to fade. The flames are said to mark the locations of structures that no longer exist, their light tracing the outlines of buildings lost long ago. It is as if the sea itself remembers, holding on to fragments of history in the form of ephemeral fire. Observers often describe a strange atmosphere when the flames appear. The air is calm, the waves gentle, and the sound of water soft and rhythmic. There is a stillness that feels deliberate, a quiet pause in which the lights can be seen most clearly. Those who witness the fire on the water speak of an uncanny sensation, a mixture of awe and unease, as though the past has crossed the boundary into the present. Some nights the flames appear in clusters, small points of light that shimmer across the water. Other nights, a single line of fire stretches along the horizon, a ribbon of color that seems to float just above the waves. The effect is always transient, changing with the tide and the wind, never lingering long enough for a complete understanding. The lights are alive in their own way, independent yet tied to the memory of destruction that created them. The phenomenon has become part of the folklore of Eatingsville Beach. Residents tell the story to visitors, passing down accounts of the fire on the water from generation to generation. They describe how the flames remind them of resilience and loss, of a community that rebuilt after tragedy yet still carries the imprint of the past. For many, the lights are not frightening, but rather a connection to history, a visual echo of an event that shaped the island. For many, the lights are not frightening, but rather a connection to history, a visual echo of an event that shaped the island. Scientists and skeptics have attempted to explain the phenomenon, pointing to bioluminescence, reflections, and atmospheric effects. Yet even when logical explanations are proposed, the experience of seeing the flames remains compelling. Witnesses describe an emotional resonance that transcends simple observation, a moment where reality feels intertwined with memory and imagination. The fire on the water serves as a reminder that the past is never entirely gone. Each flicker, each movement across the waves, is a silent testament to lives disrupted, to structures lost, and to the resilience of a community shaped by disaster. It is a presence that cannot be held, captured, or contained, yet leaves an impression on those who witness it. As night deepens and the horizon fades into darkness, the flames slowly vanish, leaving the water smooth and ordinary. The waves continue their eternal rhythm, carrying the memory of the fire in ways that cannot be fully explained. Visitors may leave with only the memory of light dancing across the sea, a brief glimpse of history made visible, and the quiet knowledge that Eatingsville Beach holds stories that persist beyond the passage of time. The ghostly fire on the water endures as both mystery and memory, a spectacle of light and history, a phenomenon that connects the present to a past that refuses to be forgotten. Each night it appears, it reminds anyone who witnesses it that the sea is more than water, the beach more than sand. And that the echoes of human experience can manifest in ways as beautiful as they are mysterious. Morris Island stands as a sentinel at the edge of the Atlantic, its shores shaped by sand, wind, and relentless tides. The lighthouse that rises from its center is a relic of a time when ships relied on its light to navigate treacherous waters. By day, it is weathered and abandoned, its paint peeling, windows clouded with salt and age, and the air around it filled with the cries of gulls and the rhythm of waves against the shore. By night, however, it transforms into something far more mysterious, a place where the past refuses to rest. Locals and visitors alike speak of a presence within the lighthouse after dark. They claim that a keeper, long gone from the island, can be seen climbing the spiral stairs, moving with a steady, purposeful rhythm. Each step seems deliberate, a ritual repeated night after night, echoing faintly through the tower as the wind carries the sound outward across the sand. At the top of the lighthouse, lights flash, cutting through the darkness in deliberate sweeps. Observers report that the glow moves with intent, scanning the horizon as if searching for approaching vessels, for danger, or for a signal long forgotten. The motion is practiced, meticulous, precise, reflecting the routines of a keeper dedicated to duty even after death. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, the figure vanishes, leaving the lighthouse dark and still, as though no one had been there at all. The origins of the lighthouse ghost are steeped in history and legend. The keeper is said to have been devoted to his post, guiding ships safely through storms and treacherous waters for decades. He knew every bend of the coastline, every hidden shoal, and every rhythm of the tides. One fateful night, he disappeared, leaving the lighthouse empty and the community mourning. Yet it is said that his dedication did not end with his life. His presence continues, bound to the tower and the light, a silent guardian watching over the waters he once knew so well. Visitors describe an eerie stillness when the lighthouse appears active at night. The wind carries the scent of salt and old wood, the sand shifts softly underfoot, and the waves crash with a steady, measured pulse. Then the lights begin to flash, and the figure appears, climbing the stairs with unwavering focus. There is a sense of reverence in the air, a quiet acknowledgement that the past is present in a way that transcends the ordinary. Witnesses feel the weight of history and duty, a reminder that some commitments endure beyond life itself. The lighthouse itself seems to respond to the ghostly keeper. Windows reflect the glow of the flashing light. Metal railings shimmer in the moonlight. And shadows stretch along the walls, elongating the figure's presence. The structure creaks and groans with the wind. As though alive, accommodating the footsteps of a man who belongs to it in ways that no living person can fully comprehend. Each movement of the light, each pause at the top. A performance that has repeated countless times and will continue long after any observer leaves. Some theorists attempt to explain the phenomenon naturally. They suggest reflections, illusions, or the interplay of moonlight and mist. Others argue that the steps and lights could be the result of local wildlife or mechanical quirks of the old lighthouse. Yet those who have experienced the apparition insist that it is something beyond explanation. The figure moves with purpose, the light sweeps the horizon with intention. And the disappearance at the top of the tower feels deliberate, leaving a presence in the air that cannot be explained by science alone. The legend of the Morris Island Lighthouse Ghost has endured because it is a story of devotion, vigilance, and the unyielding passage of time. The keeper embodies the dedication and discipline of a life spent in service to others, and even in death, he continues to watch, to guide, and to exist within the tower he called home. Each sighting is a connection across generations, a bridge between history and the present moment. At night, when the island is silent and the tide rolls in steady waves, the lights flash again from the top of the lighthouse. The figure climbs the stairs, steady and precise, reaching the summit to scan the horizon with a practiced gaze. Then he vanishes, leaving only the tower and the sound of wind in the rigging. Those who witness it carry with them the memory of his presence, a reminder that the lighthouse is more than stone and metal. It is a living symbol of duty, of persistence, and of a human spirit that lingers beyond life. Morris Island's lighthouse stands as a monument to time, history, and the enduring presence of the past. The ghostly keeper moves within it each night, performing a task that never ends, a ritual of light and vigilance that continues unseen by most. For those who watch from the shore, the sight is mesmerizing, haunting, and unforgettable. The flashing lights, the climbing figure, and the sudden disappearance. And some stories do not end. Some guardians do not rest. And some spirits remain ever vigilant. Bound to the places they loved. Forever watching over the world they once served. Bull Island stretches along the coastline, a mixture of shifting dunes, tidal flats, and dense marshland. By day, the island is serene, the wind carrying the scent of salt and seaweed, and the sun reflecting off gentle waves that lap at the shore. Yet at night, the island transforms. The air becomes heavier, the darkness denser, and the landscape seems to hold its breath, waiting for something unseen to appear. Local legend tells of a rider who once attempted to cross the dunes during high tide. The water and sand claimed him, and he drowned far from any help. His horse vanished with him, leaving only the memory of galloping across the island. A sound that still echoes in the minds of those who live nearby. It is said that neither horse nor rider were ever recovered. Yet their presence lingers, preserved in the whispers of the wind and the rhythm of the waves. As darkness falls, witnesses report seeing a horse running across the sand. Its form is distinct against the night sky, moving with the power and grace of a living creature, yet eerily silent. No rider sits upon its back. The animal appears alone, yet purposeful, tracing paths across the dunes as though fulfilling a task left incomplete decades ago. The galloping is heard more than seen at times, a deep, resonant sound that travels across the water and the marsh, reaching ears before the eyes can confirm the sight. Those who attempt to follow the horse notice something unusual. Its hooves leave no mark in the sand. Tracks vanish as if the ground refuses to record the passing of the phantom. Shadows stretch and bend unnaturally in its presence. Sometimes appearing to mimic the shape of a rider or echo the horse's motion. The combination of sound and motion creates an atmosphere that is both mesmerizing and unsettling. A scene that feels frozen between reality and legend. The dunes themselves contribute to the haunting. Shifting sand and uneven terrain can create illusions, mirroring the movement of the horse and amplifying the sense of presence. The wind sweeps across the island in soft whispers or sudden gusts, carrying with it the sound of distant waves, a faint brine, and the imagined thud of hooves. Each element blends seamlessly, forming an immersive tableau that feels alive with memory. Witnesses often describe a mixture of awe and unease. The sound of galloping echoes in the chest, creating a rhythm that aligns with the pulse of the island itself. Observers feel watched and yet drawn in, captivated by the elegance of the phantom and the mystery of its origin. The horse is not threatening, but its presence carries an undeniable weight. The shadow that follows the galloping is an enigmatic presence. Sometimes it appears close to the horse, stretching along the sand as if tethered to it. Other times it seems to drift independently, a dark mirror of motion and intent. The interplay between light, shadow, and movement is dynamic, making the scene feel cinematic and alive, as though the island is replaying an event frozen in time. Over the years, reports have been consistent. The rhythm of the surf, the whisper of the wind, and the shift of shadows create the perfect stage for the apparition. Those who have seen it describe the same sequence, a distant gallop, a moving figure without a rider, and a shadow that lingers even after the horse has vanished. Those who have seen it describe the same sequence, a distant gallop, a moving figure without a rider, and a shadow that lingers even after the horse has vanished. The phenomenon leaves a lasting impression. Attempts to photograph or record the horse often fail. Cameras capture only faint outlines or nothing at all, reinforcing the sense that the phantom exists slightly out of phase with reality. Memory preserves the experience more vividly than any device, embedding the sight, the sound, and the feeling of presence deep within those who witness it. The legend is passed down among locals. Stories of the rider and the phantom horse are told to children, shared among neighbors, and recounted to curious visitors. Each retelling preserves the mystery and heightens the sense of reverence for the island and its history. The horse is a reminder of the lives intertwined with the landscape, of accidents and tragedy, and of the persistence of memory in the natural world. The atmosphere around Bull Island at night enhances the haunting quality. The surf reflects moonlight, creating glimmers that seem to follow the horse. Shadows of marsh grasses bend in the breeze, sometimes forming shapes that complement the apparition. The combination of sound, movement, and environment creates a scene that feels both real and otherworldly, an intersection of natural beauty and lingering history. Observers often feel a connection to the past. The phantom horse embodies the story of the rider, the struggle against nature, and the presence of what has been lost. It is not malevolent, but it is insistent, reminding anyone who watches that some events leave permanent echoes. The galloping becomes a bridge between past and present, a rhythm preserved in the heart of the island. By morning, the horse vanishes. The dunes are empty, the sand undisturbed, and the island returns to the quiet calm of daylight. Yet those who witnessed the phenomenon carry the memory with them. The sound, the motion, and the shadow remain vivid, a story etched into the mind that will not fade. Bull Island's phantom horse endures as both legend and presence. It is a haunting reminder of the rider lost to the dunes, of the power of the sea and sand, and of the way memory can take shape in unexpected forms. For anyone standing alone on the island at night, the sound of galloping hooves and the sight of a riderless horse across the sand is cinematic, haunting, and unforgettable. Preserving a story that continues to run along the shoreline long after the living have gone. Devoe Bank lies quietly off the coast, a stretch of shallow waters and shifting sandbars known to sailors for its hidden dangers. By day, the waters appear calm and deceptively simple, but tides and currents move in ways that can surprise even the most experienced fishermen. Among these waters rests a memory of tragedy, a merchant ship lost long ago, its story carried forward by whispers and sightings that refuse to fade with time. Fishermen and coastal residents speak of strange apparitions that appear when the fog rolls in thick and heavy over the bank. On certain nights, the outline of a ship emerges from the mist, sails catching the pale light of the moon. The vessel seems solid at first, complete with masts and rigging, yet there is a subtle unreal quality to its appearance. Shadows move across the deck, silhouettes of figures that appear to be working or walking as though the ship is still alive with activity. Approaching the ghostly ship is an exercise in futility. Boats drawn closer often find nothing but open water and the faintest remnants of fog. The apparition recedes with every attempt to reach it, as if aware of those seeking to uncover its secret. Witnesses report a mixture of awe and unease, a sense of wonder at seeing a glimpse of the past, tempered by the recognition that what they are witnessing is not anchored in the present. The merchant ship that once sank here carried goods, supplies, and crewmen. Storms, hidden shoals, and miscalculations led to its demise, leaving wreckage that was claimed quickly by sand and tide. Yet the memory of the ship endures, manifesting in these ghostly sightings that connect past and present. It is as if the vessel itself, and the lives it carried, refuse to be forgotten. Fishermen who encounter the ghost ship describe it in vivid detail. The sails are tattered yet visible, flapping faintly in the windless fog. Figures move with purpose, carrying out tasks that no living observer can verify. Sometimes, the creak of timbers or the soft sound of footsteps on deck is heard, subtle but unmistakable. The sounds are not threatening, they are echoes of a world long gone, preserved in a spectral repetition that repeats each time the fog comes. The fog itself seems to enhance the experience. Dense and swirling, it blurs the boundaries between reality and illusion. Shapes are distorted, distances are difficult to gauge, and the mind fills in the gaps with familiar images of the ship and crew. This natural phenomenon becomes a canvas upon which memory and legend are painted, turning the ordinary waters of Devoe Bank into a stage for a haunting performance. Witnesses report a strange emotional effect as well. There is a pull, an almost magnetic attraction toward the ghost ship. Compelling observers to watch longer and move closer. At the same time, there is a sense of fragility and transience. The knowledge that what they see cannot be grasped or held is a delicate tension between fascination and apprehension, leaving those present with a memory that lingers long after the fog has lifted. The stories of Devoe Bank are passed down carefully, often in quiet conversation among fishermen and sailors. They warn newcomers about the deceptive tides and hidden shoals. But they also speak of the ship with reverence. Some claim that seeing the apparition is a reminder of respect for the sea and the lives it has claimed. Others suggest that the ghostly figures are tied to unfinished business, lingering as reminders of those who never returned to shore. The phenomenon is unpredictable. Some nights reveal the ship in full, sails and deck visible with striking clarity. On other nights, only shadows or faint outlines are glimpsed through the fog. No two sightings are identical, yet the core elements remain consistent: the presence of the ship, the movement of figures on its deck, and the inability to reach it no matter how determined one might be. These repeated elements have cemented the legend, making Devoe Bank a site of enduring maritime mystery. Even when the ghost ship is absent, the waters hold a quiet tension. The bank is shallow and often dangerous, and experienced sailors speak of a subtle feeling of being watched or guided. The energy of the lost vessel seems embedded in the water, a residue of history that manifests in certain conditions. It is a presence that cannot be measured, yet is felt deeply by those attuned to it. Devoe Bank at night, under the veil of fog and moonlight, transforms from a simple coastal landscape into a haunting scene of history and memory. The ghostly merchant ship glides through the mist, figures moving across its deck as if caught in a time loop. The water reflects pale light, the fog shifts and curls, and the observer is left with the impression of witnessing something extraordinary, a connection between the present and a tragedy long past. The shipwreck ghost of Devoe Bank serves as a reminder of the power and mystery of the sea. It is a phenomenon that combines natural conditions, human memory, and the enduring influence of loss into an experience that is both beautiful and haunting. Those who witness it leave with a lasting impression, carrying the image of sails in the fog and shadowy figures on deck. The story persists because it is more than legend, it is a fragment of history that continues to move through time, seen by some, remembered by all, and never fully forgotten. Harbor Island rests along the South Carolina coast, a place where sand dunes meet the calm waters of the Atlantic. By day, visitors stroll along the shoreline, watching pelicans dive and waves roll gently toward the beach. The island's history is woven into its landscape, from the small cottages that line its streets to the old fort that sits near the water, a relic of a time when vigilance was necessary to protect the coast. The fort is silent now, its brick and stone weathered by wind and salt. During the day it is easy to walk among its ramparts, to explore the battlements and imagine the soldiers who once patrolled its walls. But as night falls, a different presence seems to emerge. Travelers report seeing a figure standing on the ramparts, tall and still, silhouetted against the dark sky. The figure watches the sea, motionless and silent, as though waiting for something that never comes. Witnesses describe the figure as imposing yet solemn, a presence that seems both human and otherworldly. Some say it is a soldier who never left his post, a guardian who continues his watch long after the cannon were silenced and the fort abandoned. Those who approach feel a chill in the air, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that suggests the fort is aware of their presence. The experience is often described as unsettling but compelling. Observers feel drawn to the ramparts, curious to see more, yet they also feel the weight of history pressing down. The fort itself seems to hold memory, each stone and brick a repository of duty, vigilance, and sacrifice. The figure embodies that history, a living echo of the past standing against the horizon, watching the waters that the soldiers once defended. As the tide rolls in, the moon casts a pale light across the sand and water. Shadows stretch along the walls of the fort, and the figure becomes clearer in the dim glow. Some say the soldier appears in full uniform, the silhouette of a hat and coat suggesting a time long gone. Others describe the figure more abstractly, a shadow that is unmistakably human but difficult to define. In every account, the impression is the same, a watchful presence, unmoving and patient, observing a world that has moved on without him. The figure's appearance is unpredictable. Some nights, the ramparts are empty, bathed only in moonlight and the soft sound of waves. Other nights, the figure appears suddenly, visible to anyone who happens to look toward the fort. It is said that those who see him are struck not by fear, but by a profound sense of respect, a recognition that the past continues to linger in the spaces we often overlook. Locals have passed down stories of the Watcher for generations. They speak of the soldier as a guardian, one who ensures that the fort and the surrounding waters remain under a vigilant eye. Children growing up on the island are told to be quiet near the ramparts at night, not out of fear, but out of respect for the figure who stands watch. The legend has become part of the identity of Harbor Island, connecting the living to the history etched into the stones and sands. The fort itself seems to participate in the mystery. Its walls cast long, shifting shadows as the moon rises and falls. And the sounds of the night are magnified in its quiet spaces. The wind through the battlements carries whispers that may be only imagined. Yet they add to the feeling that the fort is alive, responding to the presence of its unseen guardian. Visitors often report a heightened awareness of time and place. As if the night at the fort stretches and compresses around the figure on the ramparts. Despite the spectral qualities of the Watcher, the presence is not threatening. There is no sudden movement, no gestures, no signs of hostility. Instead, it embodies patience and vigilance, a reminder of duty and the passage of time. Observers often describe a sense of calm, mingled with awe, as they take in the figure standing against the horizon. It is a moment that feels suspended, a connection between the present and a past that continues to watch, unchanged by the years. Some travelers have returned to the fort repeatedly, hoping to see the figure again. Each visit is different, the fort and its surroundings shifting subtly with the tide, the moon, and the wind. The figure may appear in the same spot, or it may seem to move slightly along the ramparts, always watching, always patient. The repeated sightings reinforce the idea that the soldier's vigil is eternal, a presence that bridges centuries and reminds those who see him of the enduring nature of duty and memory. As dawn approaches and the sky lightens with the first hints of day, the figure fades. The fort returns to its daytime silence. Empty and still, yet the memory of the Watcher remains. The stone walls hold on to the impression of his presence, and the observer leaves with a sense of having witnessed something beyond the ordinary, a connection to history made visible in the quiet of the night. The Watcher on the ramparts of Harbor Island endures as a silent sentinel. His vigil is a reminder that some duties are eternal. That history can leave echoes that linger long after the cannon falls silent. And that the past often watches over the present in ways subtle yet undeniable. Each night he returns to the fort, standing tall and silent. A figure caught between memory and reality. Guarding the horizon for all who come to see and remember. Bull Bay stretches along the coast with sands that glimmer under the sun. And waters that carry the rhythm of the Atlantic. By day, it is a serene place, where the waves lap gently at the shore. And seabirds trace arcs above the water. Driftwood rests along the edges. And the wind carries the scent of salt and seaweed. Yet beneath this peaceful facade lies a story of love, tragedy, and a presence that lingers long after the living have left. Decades ago, a young couple chose Bull Bay as the place to elope, drawn by its beauty and the promise of privacy. They came seeking freedom from the expectations of the world, intent on beginning a life together away from prying eyes. In their desire and determination, they underestimated the power of the sea. And tragedy struck. The couple drowned before reaching the safety of the shore, their dreams cut short by the unforgiving waves. Since that day, visitors have claimed to witness something unusual along the bay. Particularly at twilight when the light softens. When the light softens and the horizon blurs into shades of gray. Two figures appear in the water, close together, moving as if in a slow embrace. The shapes are indistinct, yet their form and posture suggest intimacy, a connection that death has not severed. They drift with the tide, rising and falling with the waves. And observers report a sense of longing and sorrow that hangs over the water. That hangs over the water. Soft moans sometimes accompany their appearance, faint at first and then more distinct, as though the wind carries the echoes of their final moments. The sounds are mournful but not threatening, gentle expressions of a love that endured beyond the limits of life. Those who hear them describe a chill in the air, a weight that presses lightly on the chest, a sensation that something unseen is near. It is a reminder that the bay holds memory, that some stories leave traces on the landscape and in the water itself. The couple's appearance is fleeting. They move with the tide, sometimes visible for only a few moments before the waves and mist obscure them entirely. Witnesses often speak of holding their breath, caught between fascination and fear, watching two spirits dance with the rhythm of the ocean. Then, as suddenly as they appear, they vanish, leaving the water calm and the beach empty. Only the echo of soft moans remains, fading with the wind, and the observer is left with the sensation of having glimpsed something not entirely of this world. The origins of these sightings are naturally tied to the story of the drowned lovers. Some believe the spirits are bound to the place where they lost their lives, their love tethered to the water that ended it. Others argue that the phenomenon is a reflection of grief and memory, a way for the bay itself to preserve a story of passion and loss. Regardless of explanation, the legend has endured, passed down through generations and adding an aura of mystery to the quiet coastal landscape. The environment of Bull Bay enhances the experience. The dunes and tidal flats shift with the seasons, altering the appearance of the shoreline and creating natural illusions that play with perception. Fog and mist rising from the water soften the edges of reality, blending sand and sea into one continuous canvas. Each sighting feels like a moment frozen in time, a glimpse into a story that repeats endlessly. Local accounts emphasize the emotional weight of the encounter. Observers report a profound sense of empathy and connection, a recognition of the love and loss embodied in the figures. The bay becomes more than a physical place, it transforms into a repository of emotion, memory, and spectral presence. The couple's movements are deliberate and gentle, a silent communication of affection and longing that speaks to anyone who pauses long enough to notice. Even in the absence of witnesses, the legend persists. The tides continue to shape the shore. The wind carries distant moans. And the memory of the lovers remains embedded in the waters of Bull Bay. Each wave that laps at the sand can be imagined as a heartbeat. Each ripple as a whisper of devotion that refuses to fade. The bay itself becomes a living memorial. A place where love and tragedy coexist in delicate balance. Where the natural and supernatural converge quietly at the edge of perception. At the edge of perception. At twilight, when the sun dips toward the horizon and the light softens across the water. The spirits sometimes reappear. They drift along the waves, entwined, their presence both beautiful and sorrowful. Soft moans rise above the tide, filling the air with echoes of a life and love interrupted. Then they fade into the mist, leaving the bay calm and still. Witnesses are left with the memory of the encounter, a lingering impression of devotion, loss, and the enduring power of the sea to hold on to stories that the world has tried to forget. Bull Bay remains a place of quiet beauty and quiet mystery. The water, sand, and wind hold the echoes of lives once lived and love once shared. The drowned lovers move endlessly within the waves, reminding all who visit that some connections cannot be broken, some stories persist, and some spirits remain entwined with the land and water, forever part of the place they could not leave behind. Thank you, dear listener, for walking with me along the haunted beaches of South Carolina. We have stepped through fog, listened to whispers, and glimpsed shadows that should not be there. From shipwrecks to lost brides, from drowned children to restless sailors, the coastline hides stories that never die. These 20 beaches may appear calm during the day, but at night, they breathe with the memories of the lost. So if you ever find yourself walking along a deserted shore, pay attention to the wind, the sand, and the waves. Some spirits may still watch. Some may follow. And some will wait for the next visitor brave enough to walk alone. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and respect the echoes of the past.